Hey, it's Dr. John DeGarmo, founder and director of the Foster Care Institute, and I have a very, very exciting interview. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and I know you're really, really going to enjoy it. I have with me today Rebekah Weigel, the producer and writer of an amazing film called Sound of Hopes, also known as Possum Drop. This film, I truly believe, is going to bring even more awareness and advocacy towards something that's very near dear to me, and that is children in crisis and the foster care system. Rebekah, welcome today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I love the work that you're doing, and so I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Rebekah, I think it was about 10 years ago, I was in Texas speaking at an event, and I met a gentleman who was a reverend,
Mm.
and he had told me his story, and he actually handed me a copy of his book. And since then, it was always in the back of my mind. So when I heard about this movie coming up, I put two to two together and thought, oh, wow, this is finally coming to light. People are going to see this incredible, inspiring story. Tell me a little bit about how you found out about this incredible story.
Well, it was, I think, in 2016. In 2013, my husband and I stepped forward and we adopted two of our five kids. And that experience just broke our heart for this issue and for what kids are going through in this country. And I started working to get more churches involved in Los Angeles. And so I was, there wasn't a lot of awareness, and there still needs to be a lot more awareness. But I was rallying churches, and I did a big pastors event, and I needed a speaker. And so I was looking for a really powerful speaker, a really powerful story. And I stumbled upon this story, and it really impacted me because we were in the trenches at the time with our children and just going through a lot of hard things, and really wishing that our church was more involved in that process and supporting us. And so I ended up bringing him out to Los Angeles and had him speak for this pastor's event. And it just started to turn things around in Los Angeles, to be honest. I mean, standing ovation. I think people are waiting and wanting to see the church step in and do this type of work at this type of level. And so it's inspiring. It was such an inspiring story, and it was moving hearts, and I saw the power of the story. So I went to my husband. We had another project that we had been working on that had a lot of traction, but we decided to put that one on the shelf and just we felt like God wanted us to focus on the children. And so we started writing the story on spec, and it's been a long journey. It's been 8 years in the making, but we're excited that it's coming out this weekend.
So tell us a little bit of background about this particular story.
Well, it started with First Lady Donna Martin. So after her mother passed away, and her mom was just an amazing woman she had 18 children. Everyone who knew her loved her, and her mother passed away. And when her mother passed away, she was really grieving her mother's death. And the Lord spoke to her and told her to give back and to foster and adopt. And she didn't really even know what that meant, but she came home and started doing research and ended up convincing her sister to go with her to some classes. And in the end, she convinced her husband, who was the pastor, and the whole church to get involved. And 22 families stepped forward and adopted 77, some of the most difficult to place children in the Texas child welfare system. And they were saying, send us the ones that no one else will take. They wanted the hard cases. They wanted the ones that were open for adoption. And they did it. And they did it in faith. And they did it without a lot of resources and a lot of training. I mean, they just answered the call. And I think they're such a great example to all of us of what can happen when the church steps into this crisis.
That's so very true. I've been saying for quite some time, the government can't do it in regards to foster care. The foster care system really is in crisis. More children coming into a system, whether it's the opiate addictions, whether it's coming over the border. Human trafficking is on the rise right now. Teenage suicide attempts are on the rise right now. Child depression is on the rise right now. So many children who are suffering from, I think, the real pandemic, mental health. And the foster care system is struggling. And I have felt for quite some time that it's the church's next mission field. I've been to Mexico and Honduras and Nicaragua, and that's life-changing. But there's a mission within every mile of every single church. And I think there's been an awakening the last few years. Churches are recognizing, we can play a part here, whether it's caring for children in foster care, whether it's caring for the foster parents, whether it's caring for the birth parents, even though they may have committed heinous crimes towards these children. they're still children of God, and God loves them just as much as He loves all of us. So, how has the church, you felt, changed in regards to foster care? How do you see the church helping foster care?
Well, I mean, I personally think the church is the answer, and church is the solution, and we are the ones that have been called, and the Lord, I believe, has given us everything that we need, from the people to the passion for it to the body of Christ, the support system right there in our local communities with the churches. So that's our goal, really, is to see churches step into this, be inspired by what Bennett Chapel did, and really take this call seriously.
I remember last year I went to saw the film Sound of
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom. Yes, and I walked out of there. Well, I wept through the entire film.
Wow.
And I have been seeing lately that Sound of Hope, the movie theaters are selling out across the country, which is very, very encouraging to me. What do you hope that the average person who knows nothing about foster care, what do you hope that they get out of this film? When they walk out of that theater, what do you hope that how do you think their life will be changed? What is the message?
Well, I mean, this whole process has been approached very prayerfully. I mean, from the beginning of us taking this on, it's a big deal to take on a project. It's so much of your life and your time, and, this is a passion project for us. We're actually donating all the profits back to help kids. And so, our prayer has been that it really brings awareness to the crisis. I think with the foster care system, as you know, oftentimes the kids are so removed from our daily lives. We don't get to see them. We don't get to hear their stories. We don't get to hear their struggles. And I think because of that, it's easier for us to step back and not engage because we don't really know. We don't really see their faces. And, it's like driving by an accident where if there were kids at the side of the road and you saw there was an accident and their parents were in the car wounded, and you would pull over and you'd be like helping these vulnerable children that are in this terrible situation. And really, I mean, we hope that it entertains. I mean, there's funny parts, there's inspiring parts, people are laughing, but we also really want to show what kids are going through this country and awaken their hearts to get involved and to help kids. And to do that, we really felt like we needed to show some of the harder things that kids are going through because it makes us, it builds compassion when we see these kids. And we're seeing people leave theaters like really moved deeply to get involved.
Do you think that the actors or the people on the set working behind the cameras and in front of the cameras, do you think their lives were changed as well by this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people on set were crying at times. I mean, even the director, my husband, when we started the Mercedes scene where, you've watched the film, and it's a little girl and her brother that are in a traumatic situation with a drug deal that's gone wrong, and their mom's involved. And, when we were preparing for that scene and my husband was prepping the crew, he broke down crying, because he was just like, this kids all over this country are going through things like this right now. And it was just such a sobering moment for all of us as the crew and the cast to say, like, this movie is more than a movie. Like, this is an opportunity to show people what's happening with kids, break their hearts for kids, get them involved. And, it is working. I mean, with the pre-screenings, people are leaving the theaters deeply moved, saying this is the most moving film they've ever seen, and they're captivated, and they're signing up. I mean, screening just last night with some influencers. The guy came up and said, if you've wondered if this movie is going to make an impact, I want you to know that my wife and I are signing up to be foster parents. So your impact is right here. And it's worth it for that one family to step in and care for a child or children. That makes it all worth it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. For those people who see the film and they are moved by it and they want to become a foster parent, but they have questions. They believe some of those myths and misconceptions that have been associated with foster care for a long time. What would you say to those people who are considering it, but they're not sure how to begin, or not sure if they should?
Well, I think for me and our family, we had a heart to do this for a long time, but we kept waiting for the perfect time, the perfect scenario. When we had a bigger house, when we had more money, when we had made it in Hollywood, then when at a more convenient time. And at some point, I think we just really felt, we met a foster youth was one of the things that happened, who was just sharing her story. And she said, I would have given anything to be part of your family. And that hit me hard because, as a mom, you're always seeing your deficiencies, what you could be doing for your kids. You know, uh, you feel weak. You feel like, I don't have a lot to give. But the reality is, we need good people that really care about kids and that are concerned that they don't have enough to give to these kids because they want to give everything they have to the kids. And so we put it off for a long time. I think a lot of people put it off and think down the road, I don't know how many people I've talked to who like, someday I'm going to do that. And I would just encourage you. I mean, there's something about this story that really challenges all of us, that this small community in Deep East Texas that didn't have a lot of training, that didn't have a lot of resources, they weren't superstars. They were just had love in their heart to give, and they obeyed God's call when he said, go care for the vulnerable. They didn't ask a lot of questions. They didn't sit there and think like, oh, I have to wait till I have it all together. They just acted. And I think we need to do that. I mean, we have 100,000 kids in the system today that are languishing in a system that desperately need a family to wrap around them and love them and imperfectly love them. They just need a family that will love them and show them care and concern and provide a place of safety so that they can find healing.
Matthew 25:35 says, "For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was naked, you gave me clothes." To me, that's these children. And for myself as a foster parent for 20 plus years, it's been the most challenging thing I've done, and it's a very unique lifestyle. But at the same time, it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And every child that's come through my home has made me a better person in some way. And that sounds like what happened to people in Texas. It sounds like not only the lives, but the entire community was changed. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're in the trenches with other people that are, especially in a church, I think that's how you grow and become family, is being in the trenches. I mean, I heard a story one time of someone who went off to battle and, was fighting with these brothers that was, in their, battalion or whatever it was, but it was, and he came back and he said, I developed deeper relationships in battle in 1 year than friends and family that I had had my whole life. And when he came back, he like missed that camaraderie and that, community that was developed in the trenches. And I think when you're in the trenches with people and they have your back and you're fighting together and you're doing something meaningful, I think that's where true community is really formed. And I think a lot of times in the church today, we're trying to figure out like, how do we have community and why don't we feel connected? And I wonder if it's because we haven't stepped into doing really hard things together. Because when you do hard things, and when our family stepped in, that's when I recognized my need for other people in my life. And I really realized I can't do this on my own. I am weak, and I need people to support me and come alongside me, and was longing for that deeper relationship that honestly I don't know if I was in touch with before we stepped in and fostered and adopted kids.
So tell us a little bit about the cast.
Yeah, we had a phenomenal cast. I mean, I know you know that because you watched the film, but people are raving about the performances of our actors. Nika King played First Lady Donna Martin. Demetrius Gross played the Reverend. And they just really brought an authentic, true, I mean, really the spirit of these characters came to life. And people are falling in love with their characters and rooting for them. And a lot of people are saying, I've never seen authentic faith portrayed in a film like this before. And that was one of our goals, was we really wanted to show the beauty of the church when we're doing things that God's called us to do. It's really beautiful. And it's attractive. I mean, they became a light to the world when they stepped in and cared for vulnerable kids. And We also, Deanna Babnikova, who played Terry, our young girl that we kind of follow throughout the story that came into the Martin family with a lot of trauma, she was absolutely phenomenal. And we searched across the country, actually could not find an actress in the U.S. that we felt like could play this part. We knew that the whole film hinged on this character, and that it was believable. She had been through a lot of trauma, but you also liked her and wanted to root for her and got behind her, and that was a tough balance to find. And we found her in the UK. She is watch out, that girl's going to become a big star because she just really captured this and really broke people's heart for kids. And people at the end of the film are really, they followed her character to the end and have rooted for her and are just wrecked at the end over her performance. So,
I had the opportunity to spend an afternoon on set in Macon, Georgia, and I came home and told my family about the cast, and my kids said, "Dad, that person's in the Santa Claus movies." Who was that?
Yes, Elizabeth Mitchell also. She played the social worker, and this social worker, she was a champion for this community and these kids, and the whole community loved Susan Ramsey, the true life Susan Ramsey, and Elizabeth Mitchell captured her so well. And she was just we actually just did a screening in Possum Trot, just outside of Possum Trot last night in Center, Texas, and the whole community came out, and a lot of the family, and the kids were adopted, and Elizabeth was there, and the kids were just gathering around her, hugging her and thanking her, and because they loved their Susan so much. And she did such a fantastic job capturing just the heart of who Susan was.
So when people walking out of the film and they say, "You know what, I can't be a foster parent for whatever reason, but I feel called to help. I feel called to help in some way." What can they do? What is the call for action after this film for those people who can't foster but want to make a difference?
Well, when we came to Angel Studios, this film didn't really fit neatly in any box because it was so full of faith, but it was gritty and it's real, and it's not exactly, we didn't sugarcoat fostering and adopting. And so that made it hard to find the right distributor. But, Angel Studios was the perfect fit for this. And when we shared our heart to have an impact campaign alongside of the film and ignite the movement and really see a movement form to care for vulnerable children, and they got excited with us and said, "Let's do this." So that was really just an answer to prayer. And we have an impact site, possumtrotimpact.com, that's going alongside the film, and it has ways to get involved. So one of the ways is through prevention. Care Portal has been one of our main partners that helped fund this film. And so that's a practical way people can get involved, is just meeting the needs of kids and families in crisis right in your local community and wrapping around them with tangible resources and support so that we can keep kids from going into the foster system. And we'd like to see Care Portal expand across the country through this film. Then fostering and adopting, we hope that a lot of people will be moved to get involved with fostering and adopting. And if they can't foster and adopt, they can wrap around and support families that are in the trenches right there in their church or their community and provide resources, support, respite care to those families. And then we're partnering with the Christian Alliance for Orphans to train up churches with resources and helping them to get plugged in their community as well.
Where can people see this amazing film?
Well, it's coming to theaters. Actually, tonight there's some sneak peek screenings. This is July 3rd, but wide release happens tomorrow for July 4th. It's in over 2,000 screens across the country. And I would just encourage you to go out on opening weekend, because smaller independent films like this really need the support on opening weekend, especially because if we can have a big opening weekend, it'll stay in theaters longer and it'll open up on even more screens. So it's a perfect film to bring your church to, and friends. It's actually testing really well with people that don't identify as Christians or don't particularly have a faith background. They're just being inspired by a true story of real life heroes that are doing something really important that we all can admire.
I truly believe it's a film that is going to change the minds and hearts of everybody who sees this film. You can't help but be touched by it. So I'm so excited about it. I'm so grateful for all that you've done for this film and all that you do for the foster care community. Rebekah Weigel of Sound of Hope, anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I just want to thank you for your advocacy and your work and everything that you do to mobilize churches and train people around the foster crisis. And so it's an honor to be here today, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. Okay, friends, so your goal is to go see this film. That's a call of action. Go see this film, and this film is going to change your perception of the foster care community, and it's going to change your perception of the children in crisis. Keep this in mind. There's 5 million children in crisis. 5 million children experience domestic violence in their house every single day, and this film talks about how all of us can play a part in helping a child in crisis, a child in need. For the Foster Care Institute, I'm Dr. John DeGarmo. Thanks so much.
Thank you.